And now we come to the book of Leviticus. Leviticus is one of the strangest books of the Bible. What is it about? It's about holiness. And it's about, especially for us, it's a rather strange. It is about how God laid out the rules so that the Israelites could be holy and therefore they could worship and come into his presence.
The Old Testament isn't intended for anybody other than Israel. He fulfilled the Levitical law already. He is our sacrifice.
Much said about God's mercy, much said about his grace. There is a great emphasis on the fact that God forgives, that he empowers. Almost nothing is said about the law of God, about the judgment of God, about the heinousness of violating his law and the just consequences of such a violation. And so, in a sense, the gospel, which means the good news, is stripped of what is really good because people don't know what is really bad, which makes the good news such good news.
Welcome to Diggin Deeper, a simple Bible study where we dig deeper into the Word of God. Thank you for joining me. I am your host, Billy Ray Parrish. For today's study, we turn to a new book, the book of Leviticus. Today's study takes place in the 3rd chapter of Leviticus. Leviticus is the 3rd book of the Torah and the Old Testament to provide instruction and laws to guide a sinful people. However, as we have witnessed through the first 2 books of the Bible, God redeemed humanity time and time again. And the same is still true today, but it requires a relationship with a holy God. Leviticus Chapter 3 is made up of 17 verses beginning with verse 1. And if his oblation be a sacrifice of peace offering, if he offer it of the herd, whether it be a male or female, he shall offer it without blemish before the Lord. And he shall lay his hand upon the head of his offering, and kill it at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. And Aaron's sons, the priests, shall sprinkle the blood upon the altar round about. And he shall offer of the sacrifice of the peace offering an offering made by fire unto the Lord, the fat that covereth the inwards, and all the fat that is upon the inwards, and the 2 kidneys, and the fat that is on them, which is by the flanks. And the caul above the liver, with the kidneys, it shall he take away. And Aaron's son shall burn it on the altar upon the burnt sacrifice, which is upon the wood that is on the fire. It is an offering made by fire, of a sweet savor unto the Lord. And if his offering for a sacrifice of peace offering unto the Lord be of the flock male or female, he shall offer it without blemish. If he offer a lamb for his offering, then shall he offer it before the Lord. And he shall lay his hand upon the head of his offering, and kill it before the tabernacle of the congregation. And Aaron's sons shall sprinkle the blood thereof round about upon the altar. The fat thereof, and the whole rump, it shall he take off hard by the backbone, and the fat that covereth the inwards, and all the fat that is upon the inwards, and the 2 kidneys, and the fat that is upon them, which is by the flanks. And the caul above the liver, with the kidneys, it shall he take away. And the priest shall burn it upon the altar. It is the food of the offering made by fire unto the Lord. And if his offering be a goat, then he shall offer it before the Lord. And he shall lay his hand upon the head of it, and kill it before the tabernacle of the congregation. And the sons of Aaron shall sprinkle the blood thereof upon the altar round about. And he shall offer thereof his offering, even an offering made by fire unto the Lord, the fat that covereth the inwards, and all the fat that is upon the inwards, and the 2 kidneys, and the fat that is upon them, which is by the flanks. And the caul above the liver, with the kidneys, it shall he take away. And the priest shall burn them upon the altar. It is the food of the offering made by fire for a sweet savor. All the fat is the Lord's. It shall be a perpetual statute for your generations throughout all your dwellings, that ye eat neither fat nor blood. Verse 1 instructs people to offer a perfect animal to the Lord as a peace offering, which teaches that people should give God their best, and that the offering must be without blemish. The verse ensures that God receives the best offering possible. The peace offering was a way for people to show friendship with God. People would offer a peace offering as a way to ask for mercy, or to give thanks for mercy they had received. Verse 2 explains laying one's hand on the head of an animal to be sacrificed, and then killing it at the entrance of the tent of meeting. The blood of the animal was then offered to God. The blood of the animal was sprinkled around the altar. The blood was not used for atonement for sins, but it did ransom the offerer's soul. Verse 3 describes the fat and internal organs that are to be offered as part of a peace offering to the Lord. The fat was the best part of the offering and was considered to be the Lord's. The fat and blood were given to the Lord, while the remaining meat was given to the priest and the person who brought the offering. The peace offering pointed to the sacrifice of Christ, which allowed God's people to have peace with Him. Verse 4 describes the parts of an animal that were removed and burned as part of a peace offering. The fat, kidneys, and caul were burned on the altar as a soothing aroma to the Lord. Verse 5 describes the peace offering, which was a way for people to express gratitude to God and ask for mercy. The offering was divided between the priest, the altar, and the person who made the offering. The offering was a way for God and His people to feast together, symbolizing friendship. The offering signified the suffering of Christ, which made peace possible. The offering procedure was similar to offering a cow or bull. The blood and fat were given to the Lord, and the remaining meat was given to the priest and the person who made the offering. Verse 6 explains that the animal offered as a peace offering to the Lord must be without blemish, regardless of whether it is male or female. The way this looked was the individual offering the sacrifice brought the animal before the Lord and laid their hand on its head, symbolically transferring their sins to the animal. Verse 7 details the initial step in the ritual of offering a lamb as a peace offering. The individual bringing the offering must present the lamb directly to the Lord, marking the beginning of the sacrificial process. The offering of a lamb before the Lord signifies the individual's act of bringing a sacrifice to God, symbolizing their desire to commune with and honor Him. This ritual was a way for the Israelites to maintain their relationship with God and express gratitude or commitment. Verse 8 details the act of laying hands on the offering is a symbolic gesture where the offerer identifies with the sacrifice. The animal is then slaughtered, and the blood is splashed on the altar by Aaron's sons, the priests. Verse 9 provides instructions for the peace offering, which is a type of sacrifice that involves both the offerer and the community, and specifically mentions the fat that should be burned on the altar as part of the offering, the fat that covers the inner organs, and all the fat that adheres to them is to be burned as a food offering to the Lord. This fat represents the choicest part of the offering and is to be offered to God in sacrifice. Verse 10 describes the specific parts of the animal that are to be removed and offered as a sacrifice. Here, the fat that is to be presented as a gift to the Lord as part of a peace offering. The fat includes the fat from the tail, the kidneys, the liver, and the fat around the internal organs. Verse 11 states that the priest should burn the fat of the tail, kidneys, and entrails on the altar as food for the Lord. This part of the offering was considered bread or God's food. The priest is instructed to burn these parts on the altar, offering them as a food offering to God. Verse 12 outlines the steps for the individual offering a goat as a sacrifice to lay there. Hand on the goat's head. The priests, specifically the sons of Aaron, would then sprinkle the blood of the goat around the altar as part of the ritual. Further, verse 13 explains after the individual brings the goat before the Lord and lays their hand on its head, the goat is to be slaughtered before the tent of meeting. In verse 14, the parts mentioned are the fat that covers the inner organs, all the fat that adheres to them, the 2 kidneys with the fat on them near the loins, and the lobe of the liver which is removed with the kidneys. Verse 15 describes the parts of a goat that are to be removed and presented as an offering to the Lord. The parts include the kidneys, the fat around the kidneys, and the lobe of the liver. The fat belongs to the Lord, demonstrating God's claim on all that is valued and all energy. Verse 16 states that a priest should burn the internal organs and fat of an animal offering on the altar as a food offering to the Lord. The verse also states that all the fat belongs to the Lord. The verse also states that the family that brought the offering would eat their portion of the animal, while the remainder belonged to God. Verse 17 emphasizes the prohibition against consuming fat and blood from animals, as the prohibition is intended to be a lasting law for the Israelites, regardless of their location or the passage of time. This rule is part of the broader context of dietary laws and religious practices outlined in Leviticus, aimed at maintaining a sacred distinction and honoring God's commands. According to Charles Spurgeon, Leviticus 3, which details the fellowship offering or peace offering, serves as a powerful picture of the believer's communion with God through Jesus Christ, where the act of sharing the sacrifice represents the believer's intimate relationship with God, offering praise and thanksgiving for His provision and grace, essentially highlighting the idea that through Christ, believers can now directly approach God in peace and fellowship. Further, according to Spurgeon, the without blemish requirement, just as the animal offered in the peace offering had to be perfect, so too Jesus Christ, the ultimate sacrifice, is without sin and completely fitting to be the mediator between God and humanity. The act of laying hands on the sacrifice, this symbolizes the believer identifying with their offering, acknowledging their dependence on God's grace, and transferring their trust to Christ. The sharing of the meal represents the believer's intimate communion with God, partaking in the blessings of salvation, and experiencing spiritual fellowship with other believers. According to Bible Study Tools, this chapter contains the law of the peace offerings and gives an account what they consisted of, and of the various rites and ceremonies used at them, as of the bullock, and the rites appertaining to that, Leviticus Chapter 3 verses 1 through 5, and of the lamb, and of the rites peculiar to it, Leviticus Chapter 3 verses 6 through 11, and of the goat, and of the rites belonging to it. Chapter 3 verses 12 through 16, the chapter is concluded with a law forbidding the eating of fat and blood throughout their dwellings forever. Leviticus Chapter 3 verse 17. We have reached the end of our Bible study today for Leviticus Chapter 3. I am excited to be in a new book of the Bible, and we have finished the first 3 chapters of Leviticus. I am thankful for each of you for continuing to tune into the program with me. We are beginning to put together an impressive list of programs. The first 2 books of the Bible have been really fun to learn and really deep, but there is so much more to come. There is no telling what the next studies will reveal, so join us next time for our Bible study here on Diggin Deeper, as we simply dig deeper into the Word of God. Before we go, If you liked what you just watched, like and share our content. It really helps us grow. And think about subscribing to our channel, which will help you keep up to date with all of our content. Once again, I am your host Billy Ray Parrish, and until next time, thank you for joining us. Stay safe and God bless.